Hello and welcome to the next in the series of our Meet the Employer webinars, bringing you exclusive access to inside information from a wide range of employers. This series is run in partnership with Graduate Recruitment Bureau, the UK's leading recruitment service for entry-level careers. And I'm delighted to say that we're joined by GRB today. I'm Katie Hildyard, your host for the series, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Dan Hawes, who is the co-founder of Graduate Recruitment Bureau, plus our panel consisting of 2 graduates and a current student who will share their experiences and advice to help underrepresented students excel in their job hunt. We are all fully aware that the job market is incredibly challenging right now, and it's even more difficult for those who may be worried they may be at a disadvantage as a result of being part of a minority group, which is why we wanted to run this webinar. Coming up, you can expect to receive the panel's top takeaway tips to help you excel in your job hunt, so make sure you stay tuned. Before we get started, however, I've got some quick housekeeping. The webinar will last no longer than 25 minutes, and if you experience any technical difficulties, don't worry, because a copy of the recording will be made available on the GRB profile in your online career platform. Now, this slide gives an idea of the employers who've already taken part in the series, and we have a number confirmed over the next few months. All the details can be found in your online career platform. So who do we have on our panel? I'm delighted to introduce you to Alex Atherton, who graduated in 2019 from University of Leeds, Sama Chibulu, who graduated this year from University of Leicester, and Tor Maxted, who is in her final year at the University of Sussex. Without further ado, I shall hand you over to Dan, who will introduce you to GRB.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Katie, and delighted to be here on this panel today. I won't take up too much time because we're dying to hear from our panel about how their journey has gone in this extremely challenging graduate market right now. So I'm Dan Hawes. I'm the co-founder of Graduate Recruitment Bureau, or GRB. If you're not aware, we are the go-to platform for high caliber university students, graduates and recruiters. We were established in 1997, so we've seen various downturns in that time. So we've had 9/11, we've had the recession in 2009, and all the while we've been helping graduates get into various career opportunities with our clients. So we've been there and we've done it. This situation obviously is very, very different, but we have a team of over 40 staff right now. And we actually have over 1,800 clients. They're all looking for graduates across all sectors, companies you will have heard of, like Post Office, IBM, Unilever and Ocado, but also many recruiters that I guess go under the radar. They are fast-growing SMEs. Maybe they're not quite in the Premier League yet, but they need graduates, and graduates aren't aware of these employers. So a full range of employers are looking for graduates right now. Our experts have actually matched over 8,000 graduates in that time, all starting full-time graduate level jobs.
Brilliant, thanks Dan. I think to start with, it would be so helpful for the students watching this webinar to get insight into each of the panel's career journeys to date. So Alex, can we start with you and yours?
Yeah, of course. Hi everyone. So I graduated from the University of Leeds last year, and after studying history, and then I moved to London and started an internship at the British Red Cross, which was in equality, diversity and inclusion. So that lasted 3 months, and then from that I got a job in the diversity team as a team assistant, and then that was another like fixed 3-month contract, and then I moved on to a new job at a equality and diversity business consultancy called Challenge, and I started the start of this year in January, and that was another admin assistant job, but a lot more kind of involved than what maybe I've been before. It was a smaller company, but unfortunately that only lasted up until March, when you know, a lot of people were in the same boat, and the COVID pandemic hit, and a lot of businesses lost a lot of money, and unfortunately I was made redundant after that. So since then I've been searching for a job, but I've actually found one, and I'm starting a new job tomorrow actually. So yeah, so and that's going to be in another admin assistant's job in the Ministry of Justice. So yeah, that's my kind of career journey.
Great, thanks, Alex. And I think it's so valuable having you on this call today because of this perspective you can bring in terms of your experience to date, working in companies where you've actually been within teams that look at promoting and supporting and enhancing diversity and inclusion. So it's really great to have you on here today. And I'm thrilled that you've got a job as well. It's great news.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased to be here as well. Yeah.
Summer, it'd be great to get your insight and your details of your career journey.
Hi everyone. My name is Sama Chibulu, and I'm a recent graduate from the University of Leicester. I graduated this July with the aerospace engineering degree with a year in industry, and I will be starting my journey with EF English First in one of their teaching English centers out in China, hopefully in January, if everything calms down by then to some extent. But yeah, that is where I am at the position of the very turbulent career application period, which lasted nearly a year. I found myself getting a call from GRB, and they're like, "Oh, we have this amazing opportunity for you," and I was just like, "Is this not a sign?" So I definitely took it, and yeah, so it's a contracted thing, so hopefully I'll be there for 12 months, but rumor has it that a lot of people stay there longer, so that's where I'm at the moment.
Great. And just with yours, I know when we spoke earlier, Summer, you were talking about the fact your intention was very much about working abroad, but that didn't quite go to plan because the pandemic came along, and then the pressure that you had with then trying to find a job in the UK. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, so from the beginning, so after I finished my placement, I was very much keen on working abroad because I really traveled during that period, and I really liked China and specifically, and also Hong Kong. So I was very much fixated on getting a job there. And then what happened was the pandemic, and it kind of really ruined everything. So that means that when it came to trying to apply for a job here in the UK, I was very late onto the market. And by then it was really saturated with not only 2020 graduates, but also 2019 graduates as well. So it was a real struggle, like trying to find a job that I feel like I could be happy in after having all my hopes kind of having them, I would say crushed, but basically pushed back until further notice. So when I did get the call for the teaching position out in China, it was just like a full roller coaster, like a full 360 turn. And I was just like, yeah, like this is great. So I'll be doing that. And having teaching was one thing I wasn't really even looking at to begin with. But then after doing the course and the onboarding, I'm really excited for it. So I can't wait.
Great, thank you, Summer. And Tor?
So I'm still an undergraduate student. So last year I did a placement in the NHS, but again, that was cut short due to the pandemic. But instead I became an NHS volunteer because that kind of went around and I was able to work from home. However, I've also been part of a company for 5 years. So I started tutoring in my spare time, and with the help of my parents, we created a company. So I've got my own little business.
Fantastic, thank you. And actually staying with you, Tor, as someone with a disability, it would be so valuable if you could share insight into your job hunt experience and any challenges you faced.
So when I was looking for placements, most of the companies, such as the NHS and the larger organisations, tended to give you a separate document that you could disclose any kind of disabilities or other kind of things covered by the Equalities Act. So I tended not to disclose disabilities until I got to that form. However, for some things, it can be beneficial. So because I've been involved in ME campaigns and fibromyalgia research, if I was looking specifically for jobs relating to kind of that kind of stuff, I would use it and say, look, this is my experience. It's personal, but it's still experience. However, I suppose the downside of not actually talking to someone and disclosing that you have a disability is that when it comes to the interview process, you're kind of stuck. So I think in future, I would definitely try and get interview adjustments made, because I remember going to Great Ormond Street Hospital, and by the time I got there, I'd spent ages on the train and the tube. I was having difficulty breathing, so I couldn't speak. I then had to kind of sit, and I was asked by loads of people loads of questions, and I was just so flustered and feeling so unwell that I really didn't do my best. So I think there are programs out there. There is an organisation called MyPlus that is specifically aimed at disabled students and graduates, and they're doing a webinar on how to actually ask for interview adjustment, because at the moment it's quite a daunting prospect.
Sure. And in terms of, I mean, obviously that clearly is a challenge you face, but are there other challenges that you faced throughout the job hunting process?
So I find that a lot of applications, particularly in psychology and in the healthcare setting, require things such as sitting in constrained environments for long periods of time, or kind of funny wording like this, like be able to work at a computer for 8 hours without moving. And I at first was quite worried about this, but after talking to the university, they said that actually, although it's an essential requirement, if you've got reasonable adjustment, if you've got a disability, they can't reject you on the basis of this. So I would say definitely don't lie and say that you can sit somewhere for 16 hours if you can't, or you can stand up at a checkout for 8 hours. But be aware that just because it says something like that, it doesn't mean that you automatically can't do it.
Sure. Yeah, really valuable. Thank you. Alex, just taking into account your experience, at what point would you say in the job application process do you think someone should disclose their physical or mental disability?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I did an internship at the British Red Cross, and that was actually focused mostly on disability inclusion. So I do know a bit about this area. And as going on from what Tor said, it is best to disclose this before an interview, especially if you feel like you're going to need reasonable adjustments and special requirements that they need to take into account in order for you to be able to perform at your best in the interview and therefore have a fair opportunity. But for some people, you may not need any reasonable adjustments for the interview, and in that case, you may want to save it, and maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable telling it. But I would say that I think it is something that if you haven't brought it up before the interview is a perfect opportunity to bring it up, because as well as it's important that you let them know about any condition you have where you might need a reasonable adjustment when you're working. It also can give you an idea of how they're going to respond to you having this disability, and they should really be accommodating and make you feel comfortable and not make you feel at all like you're an inconvenience or anything like that. And preferably they should be asking you these questions first, and you shouldn't really have to be trying to think when is the best time for me to ask this. Obviously that doesn't always happen like that. So, but I would say it's definitely something that you should obviously just bring up when you're comfortable, but I'd say that the companies nowadays are, they are, I think it's 1 in 5 people who are employed in the UK have a disability. So most companies have disabled employees in some way or the other, maybe without even knowing it. So it's not something that people should be scared about disclosing at all, because companies should be know how to deal with it in the best way, and if they're not, then that to me is a sign that maybe this company isn't the best for you. So
yeah, I think that's really valuable, and I think it's also the fact that you're likely to be very conscious about at the point in which you're going to share this kind of information, but also giving thought to how that company's making you feel and how proactive they are in asking you about that. I think speaks volumes about them as well, as you say. So it's very much a two-way street, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, I'd say. Yeah, ideally they should be the ones asking first, but yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen. So.
Sure. Thank you. Sama, can you share any insight into your job hunt experience and any challenges you faced?
So so during my application process, one of the things that was challenging was the aspect of the job applications themselves. And a lot of the time during video, I would get to a certain point, like the video interview or the CV screening, but a lot of the time it was the video interviews, and I wouldn't make it past that, which was very frustrating because a lot of the time they didn't offer any feedback. So that did make me really like upset. Like it would make anyone upset, like if you've just been rejected for no reason. And a lot of the time I wouldn't even get a rejection email. I'd have to like go on to my application portal and actually see like if they've rejected me or not. So that was definitely one of the most challenging aspects and in my whole experience with job hunting. But other than that, it was just kind of like, yeah, like I would always be in contact with agencies and whatnot, and recruitment people just trying to help me on that journey. But yeah.
Sure, thank you. And I think that point you make about the video interviews is fascinating, because actually really, if you aren't successful in the job application process, you have every right to find out why you weren't and to get that feedback. So I think certainly a takeaway message from this would be to encourage students to probe and to ask for that feedback, so that they're clear as to the reasons why they haven't gone through to the next round.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Super, thank you. Moving on, I'd now like to ask the panel to share what they think students should look out for when applying for jobs. I know we've potentially covered a little bit of this already. Tor, can I start with you?
So like the others have said, you want to see what their values are. So you could look, if they're big organisations, they might have an equality statement, or kind of already you can see on their website that they have like an occupational health department. Do they kind of seem to be clued up and actually understand that maybe not all disabilities are visible? So someone might look really well, but actually they can't climb the stairs because of their asthma or another lung condition or something else. And maybe if they're not such a big company, is there still an individual who you can approach? Maybe they are an HR person, or they're the person that just do stuff with people, maybe finance. There should always be someone you can approach. I think the other thing to remember is during my placement, I was made to feel like I was the awkward one and that I shouldn't be asking for somewhere to sit. I shouldn't be asking for something on the ground floor. And organisations and companies should not make you feel like that. You have every right to work and be a good part of society. There's this kind of stigma that, oh, disabled people don't actually add to society. But we're fully capable. We've got brains, we've got minds, we're intelligent. We just, maybe our body doesn't work in quite the same way as other people.
Of course, yeah, and I think that's a really, really valuable point. And it just being very aware of like how the company is making you feel is a really good thing to consider throughout the process. Thank you. Sama, what are your thoughts?
I would definitely say get curious about the company. So a lot of the time, the grad schemes, you're with the company for 2 to 3 years. So you want to be in a place where they have your best interest at heart. Their moral compass is aligned to yours. And also, going back on what Tor said, look at their equalities statements and also their diversity, like their approach to diversity. So I would definitely say do like a background check on the company. A lot of the time I was on Glassdoor, on Student Ladder, and any other forums for graduates, which could give me some insight into the company and what they do and how they treat their employees, because I feel like it's very important, especially with what's going on, to always, I know it's like kind of a thing where you might rush to get a job, but just to always bear that in mind when you're searching could be really key in picking a place that really suits you.
I think that's great advice, and I think getting that inside view as well of what it's like to work in a company is invaluable. And like you say, things like Glassdoor, Student Ladder are free, accessible tools that you can tap into to just get a feel for what it's like to work in a company, and to see to what extent what they say is reflected in what they actually do and how they make their staff feel. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. Thank you. And Alex, what about you?
Yes, so building on what the others have said, I'd definitely say you want to make sure that your own beliefs and morals align with the company you're working for. And I think a good way of finding that out is to look at the comms channels, their social media. What are they displaying on these channels and on their website as well? For example, with the Black Lives Matter protest earlier this year, like did the company have any sort of statement about that? Did they, kind of show anything in that department? And then also, like, adding on about the finding out from people who used to work there. Another thing that you can do is if you grow your kind of connections on LinkedIn, and if you use that well, you can often meet people who maybe have used to work there through LinkedIn, and you could even message them, ask them for advice, or if they have any thoughts on what it was like to work there. That's just an option. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And so lastly, it'd be really great to get the panel's top takeaway tips. So Alex, let's stay with you. What would your tip be?
I think for me, one of the most important things is to make connections and to try and grow a network of people who are working in the same sector as you. And I found LinkedIn is a really useful way of doing this. And I think a lot of people are maybe, I don't know, scared of LinkedIn, or maybe don't understand it too much. And to be honest, I don't fully understand it all the time, and I'm not brilliant at it. But it's just the process of connecting with people you knew at university, or with any people you've worked with before, and then from there you can also connect with people who are maybe doing jobs that you want to do one day, who maybe are in a career path, or their career path is resembling something that you want to do in your own career path. So I think your connections can be really important, because it can open you up to opportunities that, or even just you can get told about things that you wouldn't have otherwise known if you hadn't had those connections. So
sure. And I know when we spoke, it was so interesting, because we were talking about just put simply the fact that some people are just much more connected to others and have a more extended network, just out of luck, really, whether it's family connections, an extensive network of friends, and so actually really working on developing your own network is vital to help sort of bridge that gap and ensure that everyone gets a chance to be exposed to some great opportunities. So I think that's really, really valuable tip. Thank you. Summer, come to you next.
So I would say there are like key attributes I feel that would really help you throughout your job search. One of them is perseverance. I think it's very important to always keep on going no matter what you face, whether it's a ton of rejections one day or literally nothing the next. I think it's so important to keep on going, because you never know, the next job application you might make may be the one you get. So that's literally why I used to always tell myself. And I think by having that like personality trait as well, and the motivation to keep on going, will really help you in terms of landing the dream job you want. Another one is stay open-minded. I feel like having an open mind, and just realizing that, you know, there are tons of jobs that your skills could actually transfer into, that will allow you to have like your job application pool opened up so much, because you're not only applying for jobs in your desired sector, but also other areas that you may also fit really well into and that you may excel in. Like an example was me, like I was applying to engineering jobs a lot of the time, but now that I'm in the very early stages of my teaching career, I'm really enjoying it. So that's something to keep in mind. The last one I would say is definitely be calm with your applications. Try not to I found myself in situations where I used to panic apply, and then I'll get 5 rejections or 5 interviews, invites, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, when did I even apply for that job? Did I even want it? Was I mass applying? So always be calm. Again, going back onto how I was look up the company and what they represent and what they do, and just having a leveled head when going into any job application you have, because I feel like that will really allow you to properly have a sense of the company if you do get a role there. So those are definitely my tips.
Brilliant, thank you. And Tor?
I think the most important thing is knowing whether or not you actually want to work for them. So even if you've got the job, it's been given to you, and maybe even you've started there, but you think, actually, no, this isn't right for me. They're not looking at equality. They're not diverse. They're not taking on my needs. It is okay to take a step back and look after yourself. You are the most important thing. And even though it is so difficult to get a job, there will be another job somewhere, and you can use your experience to help you get that new job, and also to figure out, okay, this company was bad because they weren't accessible. I know what I need to ask for. I know what I need to look for.
Brilliant. I think that's really sound advice. And like you say, it's only going to hurt in the long term as well if you do end up taking a job where you don't feel that they're actually being fully supportive of your needs. So I think that's definitely something that students should bear in mind when job searching. Well, look, thank you all very much. Just before we wrap up, I'm going to hand back to Dan to talk about a really interesting initiative set up by GRB.
Thank you, Katie. And there's so much information and resources out there for graduates looking to enter the jobs market. It can be very difficult to know how to make a start. So I'm hoping the advice we've had from our 3 panelists will give thousands of graduate job seekers a starting point at the very least. So I think this advice is really, really useful. It's very rare we get to hear from students and graduates in this way. So I hope universities are able to broadcast this to as many graduates as possible. In addition to what GRB are doing at the moment, we've recently launched something called Graduate Mentor. So this gives graduates free one-to-one video call sessions with a range of mentors. We have 100 on there at the moment. They're from all walks of life. Some are specialists in diversity and inclusion, and they've all volunteered to arrange sessions with graduates using this platform. So I'd strongly encourage anyone wishing to follow up to visit this website and get some more information from recruiters and employers who are out there that are very, very keen to help you.
Super, thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us today, and a big thank you to our panelists, Alex, Sama and Tor. It's really been fascinating to gain insight into your experiences, as well as the tips and advice that will, I'm sure, help today's students. We certainly hope you found this session insightful. This webinar is part of our Meet the Employer webinar series. To find out about others we have taking place, all you need to do is visit the newsroom on this careers site, click the webinar tag. You'll see the schedule of webinars we have running, and you can access GRB's full profile and details about their opportunities. Places are limited for our webinars, so we do urge you to sign up as soon as you can if there's one that you want to attend. And as ever, we'd love your feedback. So at the end of this session, a very short feedback form will pop up. If you can share your thoughts with us, that would be great. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope to see you on another webinar.